Just getting.
Cool. People getting here. Hello, everyone. You're very welcome. We'll start in a couple of minutes. Just let more people join us. Wow, 70 people online, 80 people online. Wow, the people getting here. 90 people online. 100 people online. Wow. I never was a part of any Zoom event with 100 people online, and it's still growing. Wow, 110. How many do you have on LinkedIn? I think that's hundreds of them or so.
125 already on LinkedIn, so it's a good start to today.
Whoa! That's really good to start. So we'll start in a couple of minutes, just to allow more people join us, right? Okay, 115.
And for those of you joining me on the LinkedIn, just if you wouldn't mind sharing where you're chiming in from, that'd be great. I'm actually just outside of Seattle, Washington, where unsurprisingly it is pouring down rain. So it's true. It rains here all the time right now. But would love to know where everyone else is checking in. Ivan, where are you coming in from today?
I'm in Santa Monica, California.
I'm sure the weather's better there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? So welcome, everyone.
Q&A is already full. Wow.
Thanks so much for joining us today, wherever you may be logging in from. My name is Melissa Russell, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started with the presentation, just a couple of things that comes up every time. Yes, we are recording the presentation, and yes, we will make the recording available as well as the slides. I will make sure we get those out as soon as possible. For those of you on the LinkedIn event, I will also be putting a link to Zoom where you just have to put your name and email. That's really the easiest way to get a copy of the slides and the recording directly, since it doesn't pull you over from LinkedIn. But definitely I'll put that in there in just a moment. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. I am thrilled to be joined by Ivan Novikov, who is the CEO and co-founder of WallArm. And today he is going to be presenting API Security, a 10-year retrospective. Ivan, go ahead and take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks Melissa for introducing. Okay, I think that we're ready to go. 130 people online here and like more than 100 on LinkedIn. First of all, if you never know about WallArm or never follow up on LinkedIn, just do that. Find our company by the WALLARM on LinkedIn and follow the page, since today we will post all these next events there on LinkedIn. So it's better to follow us to get updates. Okay, so let's start then. I think that we're ready to go. First of all, thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm really surprised that many people joined, and we do have more than 5,000 people that sign up for this on LinkedIn, which is just an unbelievable amount. We never did it before. It means that the topic is pretty hot. So I'm here today to basically get a quick overview to API security and review what happened for the last 10 years. So before we start, a couple of words about myself. I'm a security researcher and a speaker at different conferences, including Black Hat. It was like 8 years ago, but still, I'm not that old. I'm also a bug hunter and submitted a lot of bugs, also author of Server-Side Request Forgery Bible. If you read it, it's an online book. CEO of WallArm since 2015. And we are #1 API security solution by G2 Crowd, which is an important mention. And also I'm a bit liar, since this research actually covers 24 years of API security and not 10 as promised. I just put the 10 years as a first assumption and then built a research based on the more data, which is even better. Okay, just a quick question. Can you hear me well? Is everything good with slides and everything the rest, since I'm going to show some more juicy content?
We look good.
Cool. Okay. Before we start, a couple of things about the main reasons of this research. Here is 3 different buckets, and I really like to put everything to different buckets to don't mix up things. So first of all, let's get insights. I want to know how long did API security rally started and from where it goes, what's the trend, so what's next, what we can expect, how should we actually build better solution as a result. And which issues are that and which are not still, which is important. So for instance, I want to know if injection is still there or not, if it's possible to find Path Traversal, some kind of very old-fashioned attacks with modern APIs or not. Second bucket is collect reusable data. I want to collect all these API exploits if possible and make this data available and reusable to, first of all, build better security products, and then also to classify and clean up it to be able to reuse, which is an important part of this project as well. And the third bucket is just like how to analyze this data, build charts, analysis, and probably predict something if it will be possible. So first of all, the research is big. I'm not sure that I'll able to cover all of the things that I did. I think that we have to split this by two different events. Today, I will basically explain what I did, what with data I analyzed, and all the trends. And probably in a couple of weeks or probably a month, I will explain what I suggest in terms of the classification and some additional insight, because again, it's not that easy to analyze that many data, and it's not that easy to put everything in 35 minutes. Okay, previous and related work. Before we start, probably some of you already joined us before, and you know that I did some research on OWASP predictions and OWASP statistical proposal. Also, we do tools like Go TestWAF tool, which is an open source WAF and API security solution tool, and open source API firewall, which basically allow you to protect your REST APIs by Swagger. So all of this is a part of this research, since I have to know better what I want to secure. I have to know better what's the current trends and what other job was done in the same direction. Okay, now the data source. I think that the main reason of this research is to aggregate data, and before that we have to collect the data. So I analyzed more than 10,000 different CVEs and bug bounty reports, including exploits and a lot of different security reports from 1998 to 2021, technically to nowadays, to the May, including today. So it's 10,000, which is a significant amount. So as I studied in the university, my one of my professors said that if you do have less than 10,000 something, it's not a statistic. So it's statistically proven data. Okay. So, and something about the methodology or how exactly we analyze the data. It was 5 different parts. Part number 1 is data gathering, the search queries, run the search query, download the data. Then part number 2 is filter data, technically manual validate if the particular report related to API security or not, because you know that API, it's just 3 characters, and you can find these 3 characters everywhere. Just want to Google by that, you have to be very careful and clean up the data. Then they classify the data, right? Run this data classification, sorry, and then find if the particular like report or payload related to particular API, for instance, protocol or vulnerability type, and send back this data to filtering. That's why you can find this like feedback loop, because I did a lot of this iteration, technically hundreds of these iterations to finally build the cleanup, finally be able to clean up and finally build a list of the data. And then data analysis, which definitely runs some charts and histograms and statistical approach, approximation, stuff like that. And then report and visualization, that's where I will present today. So it takes me like more than a couple of 100 hours to build everything here. And what's more important here, I will upload the data, and everything that I will present today will be available for further research. And if you just need to take this data as a source, email me. A bit later, I will explain how to get this data. So nothing hidden from here. So the most challenging part is the classification, right? So first of all, and this is the nuts, and to be honest, the main reason of this research, I want to download all this API exploits, security balances, and reports, and check if I can classify them correctly, and if I can be sure that our solution or some other solution definitely implement kind of controls to protect against these issues. Because we all know that OWASP top 10 is just not enough. OWASP top 10 2021 is just something that makes me crazy sometimes, including this like sensitive data exposure, which is now part of the cryptographic issues for some reason, and a lot of different things. Never mind, it's still a good job that was done by OWASP team. And it's just not enough to build solutions, right? It's not enough to implement controls. It's just like something that's good to have. There is a different OWASP for API security and classic OWASP, which is technically not clear to me as well, since like there is no web without APIs nowadays, and this should be merged, definitely. CVE, common weakness enumeration format, it's very comprehensive and sophisticated, and hierarchy tree, just impossible to use it. for implementing controls, but it's definitely the full covered stuff. And then which is also very challenging here, as like a lot of description of these reports and security bulletins is just written in different words. For instance, people can call like one exploit one time they can call this like cross-site scripting. Next time, the same researcher can call the same bug as, for instance, JavaScript injection, which is happens here and there. Okay, the classification is the most challenging part. That's why I put this classification part to completely different research. That should be the part of the next event. So before we start, a couple of insights that I get very early. So what do you know? What do you think? How new is the API security space at all? And when API exploits started to show up? So I was able to find and officially the first API security exploit that actually was published in April 1998, and it got CVE 1999. How it was at the time? It's IRIX, if you still remember what does it means and what the product is about. And it's basically the direct traversal or path traversal vulnerabilities that allow remote attackers to use this API search tool to download the arbitrary files. I called that hunting dinosaurs with Ivan. And after I found that and realized that, I decided to find the latest path traversal exploit, almost the same issue, but somewhere from nowadays, to just check the basically is the dinosaur already dead or not. And I tried to find when when the same issue happened again, and I found that surprisingly the same issue actually was found just less than a month ago, technically 2 weeks ago, in WSO2. If I think that significant amount of you know what does this, oh, we do have almost 200 people online. That's great. So I guess that you all know what that this WSO2 means. I just want to highlight that as the same dinosaurs still exist, it's still possible to find this path traversal attack or a part of injection attack according to OWASP, at least previous OWASP. It's still possible to find the same issues even nowadays. So it's still available. It's still open. You have to take care about it. And it's not somewhere. It's in WSO2, which is a kind of heart of all these APIs, and at least a lot of these APIs nowadays. It's a API management solution, very famous one, and enterprise grade, enterprise ready, pretty good product, by the way, one of the best one. Still vulnerable for the same stuff as it was 24 years ago. So now about insights. So I basically will split this research and my presentation today by two different parts. Couple of insights that I got instantly, and then analysis that I did, and the insights and predictions that I got because of this analysis. So first of all, insight number one is we do have 5 new API exploits a day. That new exploits that came, and reports like CVEs and other issues detected and products with no numbers, sometimes CV numbers, sometimes a day. And the basic interpolation here, it's an exponent one, right? So we do have this exponentially growth since 2015 at least. I removed some data on the left since it wasn't that many of them. We do have this chart on the right side, and there is an easy insight that I got right after I ran this research. Please be careful. So API is here and it's growing well. By the way, our company was founded in 2014, somewhere here. It means that we put this bet for a while, like 8 years ago, and this bet finally starts to play in full. We start to build these controls and build the better detection logic, found that WAFs will not protect against these issues back in 2014. And after 8 years, I finally can say that we found the way and we built a security solution that nowadays is very actual, so which is not bad at all. So first of all, let me check if everything is good. I will stream in everywhere and take a small break, like 5 seconds, probably address some question in the chat, since I want to make this presentation more interactive. Is everything good with the connection and stuff like that?
We're still looking good.
Cool, that's great. Sorry, just need to take some water. Okay. Second insight. So the majority of APIs based on web, but not all of them, right? And here I put the trends and to basically highlight how many of all the APIs, including binary APIs like the DLL calls, iOS, Android, IoT devices, the Java runtime and stuff like that, how many of them among like all the amount of APIs. You can find here that the web APIs technically growing faster than other API exploit, but it's still there. And all the time when we're talking about API security, we should not basically forget about like non-web APIs. Could be like private API based on MQTT protocol, which is completely non-web. It could be whatever, the binary API that even browser can use, by the way, or something like that. So don't forget about that. API security as a domain, it's not only about web APIs, but definitely main part of that is the web APIs, since it's publicly available. It's also growing very fast, and you have to basically build, and it's definitely business critical, right? So it's the public-faced APIs, public-faced access to the data you have, but keep in mind that. And a third insight that I also want to share today as the CVSS score. And that one was technically pretty interesting because I expected to see, to be completely honest with you, I expected to see kind of like the significant growth here from like 4.5 average score in 2002 to like 7.8 now. In effect, the situation is different, and that a bit later I will explain what's the reason of this. So the CVSS score as technically a kind of measure of the risk with different other parameters. It's a sophisticated vector that define how the particular issue or vulnerability risky, right? Because of that, we put all the data here and I try to find what's going on, and we found that it starts from like 5, 6. Sometimes it's like jump to the 10, but overall it's about 6, even less than that. And if you take a look at this chart, you will see that it seems like the temperature fluctuation, right? It starts from somewhere and try to like, if there is a lot of up and downs and all the rest of that, you will get the kind of average or median stuff. We can say that it starts to grow somewhere in 2021, specifically if we will take a look at that right part of the chart. But since we see all this previous data on the left, it seems like more the normal fluctuation between the average value. So, and that actually was the insight that surprised me. I definitely expected to see the exponential growth everywhere, but I never expect to see that average CVSS score. It's not actually running up. And I did another one research, which is a histogram. And this is the first analysis that I did with the data. Put everything that I know about the CVSS and try to make a histogram. So first of all, I found the zeros. Zeros on the left means just that not all the CVEs included the CVSS score. Don't count them. And then we have the pretty, let's say, normal distribution between values, and the average is definitely somewhere of 5.8. And we do have a left part of this chart and a right part of the chart, which is the basically aligned to the main value. And that one seems like pretty normal, pretty looks like Gaussian, and the data seems like we did at least something looked like normal statistical research. There is no spikes and downs, and the histogram looks like pretty normal, which is good. And at the same time, this histogram will never explain why CVSS score is that, let's say, low. Before we'll switch to the next slide, I want to explain that overall average CVSS score of all the issues, all the CVEs detected from the beginning of ages is about 6.2 overall. It means that we do have a distribution that they basically align to overall CVEs. It means, as it for now, that API security, just like the good representation of overall exploits, right? It's just a part of them, and their distribution should be inside the big distribution, which is normal. But again, like from my point of view, it's still not clear why it's that low. And then I did some more analysis and some more research, and I split this CVSS score by impact and exploitability metrics. So the basically impact and exploitability metrics is a part of this CVSS score. If you want to understand the CVSS score, you have to measure different parameters, including like the impact and exploitability. So now, if we will take a look, at this charts, which looks a bit heavy now, but it's self-explainable, I think. We found that there is a kind of split between impact itself and exploitability. And I think that the reason of this, as the people and researchers and the companies who put it there, they actually underestimate an impact. Exploitability is very high, which is very normal, which is to me seems like pretty logical, since APIs is everywhere. It's super easy to exploit them. API, it's a kind of direct access to the data. That's why it shouldn't be that hard to exploit APIs, because it's basically designed to be, let's say, used or exploited, right? And if we now look at this chart, we instantly find that it seems like an impact and underestimated. So probably we have to take a look at the data from different angles and find what is there. But again, it's completely normal. And what's really important here is that exploitability of this API exploits is very high. That's why significant impact, significant part of the CVSS score related specifically to exploitability and not to other parameters. If we will increase this impact a bit, which in a lot of the cases depends on the current environment, the current company, the current business processes, we will see actually better, much higher CVSS overall, right? Because again, like the impact depends on the particular business, depends on the particular environment, depends on the particular parameters and the infrastructure and a lot of other things that shouldn't be technically a part of this average score related to the particular issue. Okay, just a couple of more seconds. Do we have any questions, by the way? I can like jump to them and probably address some of them before.
We do. I've got a couple that came in off the LinkedIn site. Andrew. Yeah, so Andrew had a question about specifically around what tools you use for identifying API vulnerabilities and fuzzing. So if you could elaborate on that.
Sure. First of all, this is a statistical research. I just downloaded the data, as I mentioned before, from the bug bounty CVEs and data using the vulners.com API. So I just download the data. In a particular practice, we're building a product to secure APIs. Like Volume itself, it's an API security solution that can parse any API protocol on the fly and basically apply controls and then protect you against all those exploits.
There was a follow-up on that one. Yeah. Specifically, they said what tools are available to use for API testing. The person mentioned Burp and Postman, but if there's any others that you think they should know, that'd be helpful. Sure.
Yeah, I have to mention two tools. First of all, it's our Go TestWAF tool. It's available on GitHub. I started from it. You can download that. And there is a lot of controls built in there. We can use a tool to check if the particular API controls that you implemented work or not. Plus, the tool is open source and it's extendable. You can add your own payloads and stuff. And to protect APIs, also I can recommend our open source API firewalls that basically can apply Swagger-based policies and implements hardware into your to your APIs. Okay, let's take one more question. And I'll keep back with slides.
Okay. I think this one, I know this gentleman, Rich Lavka. Is the vulnerabilities analysis done in runtime or live wire on the network or other?
Yeah, if I understand the question correctly, the particular research I based it by the bulletins and CVEs analysis in a real life, in a real time. You have to do everything, right? You have to implement controls in real time. You have to scan APIs. You have to like create this multi-layer security and implement all the controls.
Okay. We'll have a couple of others, but we can save those for a little bit later when you take another pause.
Oh yeah. Let me switch to another slide. So then I tried to build the trend analysis, and probably this is the last part of this presentation. Then we'll switch to the further ideas. So what I also did is just to split all these APIs by all the API exploits by protocols to find how many of them related to like legacy web, how many of them related to REST APIs, GraphQL APIs, SOAP, and WebSocket, stuff like that, and just to find the trends. As you can find here that legacy web from overall take the majority of all these API exploits. Legacy web means web APIs, AJAX, web forms, non-REST APIs, bypassed some other variants, how to call the basically web the web endpoints without like structurized APIs, and the rest is just JSON, RPC plus REST all together in this class, which take technically another half of them. Some of the other protocols somewhere between, but what's more important here to see the trends, right? So overall, if we can imagine that significant amount of legacy API will exist somewhere 10 years ago and not exist anymore, we have to see that by applying the same data and splitting them by months and years. And then I have this chart, which is the most powerful data and the most powerful analysis that I did based on the data I grabbed. So first of all, legacy web is not dead. So you can find that it definitely grows, and the overall trend is there. REST is the number 2, and all the other trends is somewhere here. It's too early to say which one of them will dead, but even nowadays it's still possible to find SOAP exploits or XML RPC exploits that happen, because again, there is a lot of APIs not directly related to like software as a service or some fancy companies, but also hardware devices like whatever F5 big IP, for instance. Today reported the critical RC remote code execution issue directly related to their API, things like that, plus outdated controls on enterprise software companies like whatever SAP, Salesforce, and whatever, not all of them based on new modern API protocols only. So we have to see that, and we have to take careful not only about this modern REST APIs or even the modern GraphQL or gRPC, but also the very legacy web, because it's still there. Definitely, if we're talking about the software as a service companies, we can't say that you have to avoid protocols you have to start with that. This is for sure. I just want to present and show how that this trends looks like from over the years. Okay, at this point, I just want to sum up. It's almost alpha hour done. I just want to sum up everything and probably put some more colors on what's next and when to see the next report. So as I said before, API exploits are growing exponentially. You have to do something with that. It's not the trend that we can all avoid. So it's definitely here, and we do have up to 5 exploits a day that basically happens. So second thing that I want to mention, that API security not necessarily means web APIs, but also like binary APIs and some other variants of APIs, but web APIs is the most common. That's why we probably have to start with them. Plus, they almost all the time internet-faced, which is an important note. The third bullet here as the legacy web APIs like non-REST, non-GraphQL, non-gRPC are still growing, and it take and they take like the 50% of all these reports. It means that it's still very actual to secure all the public-faced endpoints, even if it's legacy one, because probably hackers will start from them. Then CVSS exploitable rate for APIs are very high. It's about 9 on average. So it means that it's very easy to exploit this APIs if they are vulnerable, which is completely, let's say, logical. If we will count that the API initially designed to be basically exposed, to be basically used somehow, and then we need the better classification to deal with all these exploits, because the basically OWASP and OWASP top 10 is not enough to find what the root cause, to find how to protect, to find which controls we have to apply to at least be able to address all these issues in a real time. So therefore, the next part of this job will aim to classify all these exploits, basically put 100% coverage on them, split them to different categories, find is this, like, let's say, path traversal still going there or not? So what the path to all the API exploits that we found last 10 years, for instance, depends on injections or not. What to do with BOLA or broken object level access controls? Are they still actual or not? Or are there authentication authorization issues and stuff like that? All of this is a part of the next event, the next part of the same research, since it's just not possible to pack everything together and don't actually overload audience by the content. The latest that I want to mention today, and then switch to the Q&A session. Please feel free to ask any questions. I'm able to address, I hope, all of them. That if you want to learn more about API security and exploits, so first of all, join our API security community group on LinkedIn. Subscribe to our newsletter at labvolume.com. We do have this emails with the newsletters and new exploits. We're also running this quarterly API exploits reports. You can download the latest one from Q1 2022. It's available on the website. You can download that and find everything about, like, the latest API exploit that got discovered and published in Q1 this year. Again, feel free to reach out with any questions. If you need any anything related to API security, visit the website and find how to connect with us. And then I guess that in a month, we will come back with the detailed classifications of all these exploits to show how to, which kind of categories and which kind of controls we have to implement to protect against all these exploits that we seen so far. Okay, let me switch to Melissa and ask if we have any questions and address them.
Yes, we do. I promised one of our LinkedIn attendees that I would make sure we captured this one before we ran out of time. And it also showed up on our Zoom as well. We have some people who are definitely interested on getting started in API security for beginners. Like, what can you recommend that they should be doing?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting question though. First of all, I highly recommend to start with this the web security handbook. So it's the big book, more than like a couple of 100 pages, but I definitely recommend to start from there. They basically learn about this API HTTP protocol first, and then API data protocols, including REST. Start with them. Web hacking handbook is just awesome, and it's a good start.
Okay. By the way, I know several people are asking the same question. I am going to corner Ivan after this recording and make sure I get links to all the things he keeps bringing up. So for those of you who've shared your email address and those who are on the Zoom, I'll make sure that we include those links as well. The next question that came up is from Jawad on our Zoom. He says, how can authentication and authorization, usually based in tokens, mitigate the risk of API exploitability?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question there. Unfortunately, I don't have the detailed research of the classification to show you how many of all these issues related to the particular issues like authentication authorization. The short answer is here. So First of all, authentication, authorization tokens, and specifically GVT and stuff like that, it allow you to implement different controls, but it's also expose some more issues because they controls itself can raise additional security issues inside them. And the same thing as it happened with like the data encryption and SSL before, right? You have to implement that to protect against some kind of attacks. But if you implemented that in a wrong way, you basically introduce more and more risks and more issues. That's why it's a kind of like for one hand, all these controls reduce attack surface. From other hand, it can basically extend the attack surface by their own bugs and issues, security issues inside these protocols. Be careful with that. Specifically with the GVT, if you never seen that this month, probably just in April, a couple of weeks ago, it was the huge issue found in Java related to the issues that basically allowed to bypass GVT. So find that, and again, like follow us on LinkedIn. We're posting this API exploits daily there and API security community group, and discussing them there. Okay. The next question.
Next question. The question is, APIs are meant to hide underlying architecture. Can you share what samples of exploits are mostly happening, especially for REST?
Yeah, so it's definitely the part of my next presentation, since it's not that easy to classify all of them, right? So the main problem is like types of exploits belong to some kind of classification, and unfortunately, OWASP is just not enough. I can say injections, and what you will do is that there is a SQL injection, there is a OS operation system command injection, shell injection, comment injection, server-side template injection, and a lot of other things, right? Or it's a bunch of different injections. Definitely, my answer is just it will be injection or broken access control, but it's too broad to do something with that. That's why the next part of the job, I will explain everything and split probably this API security to up to 50 classes with general classes and subclasses to show you what's exactly there and what's the latest was discovered, how to protect against these exploits, and what to expect next. Follow us, and you will know about the next event and this the second part of this research that should be available in a month. But that's a good question. Thank you for that. Okay, the next one.
Yep. Sorry, I just lost my place. The question is, can you implement two-way authentication for APIs?
Sure. It's completely usual things. You can implement the client certificates as many companies doing with this partners APIs or private APIs. The usual name for them is the private APIs. It still required a lot of controls, and specifically if we're now talking about the zero trust. By the way, I wrote an article in our blog lab.volum.com a couple of months ago, specifically related to zero trust for API security. Take a look at that. It's like 5,000 words article, not that big. Yeah, so it's normal. So it's completely, let's say, usual for private APIs. It's not that easy to manage and maintain, but if you don't have that many clients, it's okay to use that. But don't forget to implement controls, because basically your partner or client with your SSL key or multi-factor double-side authentication could be also hacked or compromised and try to exploit you. The next question.
Okay, the next question is, if you could share the name of the API tool in the API WAF, do you have a vulnerable API we can use for learnings and testings?
Oh yeah, so I highly recommend to use the burpsuit port swigger API lab with all the vulnerabilities there. Unfortunately, it's not complete, but there is nothing complete in this world at all. And for the testing purposes, I want to recommend the Go TestWAF tool. You can download and open. It's an open source. You can download, modify the tool, and that's the best tool that I actually can bring up. But it's not that many of them. This is for sure. That's why if you want to join us and probably join efforts in the creating this labs or tools, just drop me a message on LinkedIn or ask people in the API security community and LinkedIn group to basically solve this together. So I'm completely with you. It's not that many of them.
We have a really active group today. Here's the next question. What are the most common security flaws of API or mistakes during design?
Oh yeah, we discussed that a bit early, but first of all, it's an access control stuff and a lot of things related to authentication, authorization of these calls. And also injections, unfortunately, it's still there because the people just don't know all the places where they can pass injections through. So I think that it's my top list. But again, it's a bit complicated question, and it's a very, let's say, big. It's not that easy to answer that in a few words. That's why I want to highly recommend you to follow the research and join us next time when I will directly explain what under the hood of this API exploits, which classes are there, how to deal with them, how it's related to OWASP, or what's actually hidden from OWASP and stuff like that.
Okay, next one. So even if you are using gRPC and you are securing the communication with MTLS, you still have to think about the security issues?
Yes, you have to. The gRPC is a really good thing. First of all, you can, and it's the very, let's say, structured and formulated data. You can basically run this any gRPC call you want, but the typical attack vectors there, specifically if you're talking about mobile devices, I think that's the main implementation nowadays. The people can download the mobile app, open this mobile app, decompile it, find the protobuf schema, and use the same schema to challenge your APIs. So it's never mind what protocol used. Significant amount of these issues specifically related to the ability your API to do something out of scope, including injection, including like access control, and to challenge your APIs that I guess will basically call them in a different way, run fuzzing and stuff. And to avoid that, it's not enough to basically implement any data protocol. Never mind if it's gRPC, WebSocket, GraphQL, you have to be careful with the data flow and every single parameter that can pass there. And it's not definitely you implemented just like gRPC with integer numbers and avoid any strings and a lot of other stuff. Your attack surface is much, let's say, less than others, but it's almost impossible. And all the time when we're talking about data protocols, also don't forget that there is a kind of protocol encapsulation. It means that you probably will have JSON data or XML data under the hood of this gRPC, which happens here and there, or base64 encoded data and something like that, which is now open completely different attack surface. Don't forget about nested API protocols and nested encodings.
Okay, let's switch over to the Zoom group. They are saying, what do you advise companies exposing open APIs for public consumption?
Can you please repeat the question? I missed the first part.
They said, what do you advise to companies for exposing open APIs for public consumption?
Oh, I see. I can say that it's related to the security, let's say, directly. I definitely want to recommend to check all this, the public specs you actually published, and try to implement as many controls as you want, but that's only that I can recommend so far. If you can explain a bit your use case in a bit more details, probably I can advise in something with something better than just general advice.
Next question is, how can we assure that APIs from vendors are safe and free of bugs?
We cannot be sure, this is for sure. And the only thing that I learned during this like 20 years in cybersecurity is like, don't believe in any controls and implement more controls on the top of your previous controls. So, and that's the basic concepts of zero trust. Don't trust anyone, right? So that's why we highly recommend to secure any APIs exposed or not exposed, like private API, or public or internal API by tools like us, like Worm, to analyze traffic and find if the particular API responds wrongly or expose some data or data breach happen, and protect them against new exploits like log4j or spring for shell, something like that. So you have to be able to implement controls right on time, never mind if the vendor guaranteed or certified or whatever. So it's your own infrastructure, even you technically bought or rent part of it.
Okay. There's another question that came in from the LinkedIn side that said, any recommendations for any open source libraries that can be used for REST API security? So open source.
Oh yeah. So I highly recommend our API, Open API firewall. It's an open source. By the way, we got 1 billion Docker pulls recently. That's just a very popular project. Use them. If you need a library, it's an open source. You can extract the library that use it there, or just install them as a proxy, analyze traffic. With a tool, you will able to implement hardening by the basically strictly validate your Open API or Swagger spec for requests and responses both. It means that you will able to control your REST APIs using just Swagger or OS, and if something bad will happen with calls, the API firewall will block them. That's just a very useful tool, and it's available for free. It's an open source.
I have a lot of questions that are around the exact same topic. And it's probably something we can do in the follow-up. There's a lot of questions about the books and trainings that you recommend. Like we have about 10 requests for that. There's also a person who is asking, do you have an opinion on setting up mutual TLS to secure your APIs?
Yeah, I think that I covered this before. So don't forget about additional controls, even if you're verified and certified, authorized your client, and the client also show up with a certificate. It's very powerful to reduce, let's say, attack surface, but you have to take care of all the rest of the controls. And don't forget about zero trust. Zero trust basically say that you have to implement the same controls for the same API endpoints, never mind where they're placed. Private APIs, public APIs, mobile APIs, or internal APIs, all of them should be secured in the same way.
Okay. Let's see here.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the questions. By the way, even after the event, we will address and reply to you on the LinkedIn. Just put your questions there. I will switch from my deck to the LinkedIn right after the event and try to address as many questions as I can. Plus, if you want to ask more, just do it there. Let's connect, let's communicate. If you want to ask something more outside of the event, join the API security community group and ask there. So we're there to basically address all the questions there. So, okay, let's take the last one.
There was a quick follow-up on that one. Could you just repeat what the name of the open source resource that you mentioned? Somebody just asked.
Oh yeah, the open source project called API Firewall, Open API, open source API Firewall. You can download it at github.com/walarm/API-firewall. You can find everything here, and the Go TestWAF tool also available on the GitHub. By the way, it's not a bad idea to just follow us on GitHub and find everything you want there and track new updates and the new releases there. github.com/walarm.
Just taking a quick peek because I had a lot of people asking for the slides and all that. See if we have any additional questions.
Yeah, the deck will be available.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Why don't I take this opportunity? So for everybody who joined us on the LinkedIn side of things, everybody who I believe put their emails in there, if you weren't already signing up on the Zoom, I tried to capture as many as possible. And I will be sending out a follow-up with a link to both the recording, which will be a YouTube link, as well as a link to the PDF of the slides. And we will do our best to capture some of the resources that were mentioned here. But again, Ivan is always available to answer questions. So feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and we'll make sure to address them as well. So I think at this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude our presentation. Ivan, thank you so much. This has definitely been one of the most engaging sessions we've had so far. And I want to thank everyone who joined us from around the world, from India, from Oklahoma, from Canada, from the UK, everywhere around the world joined today. So thank you again, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. Our next one is going to be on May 26th, so look for an email. It'll probably be from me, Melissa Russell. We're going to be talking about our approach to API security, so we'll be featuring some live demonstrations in that as well. So hope to see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn.